Okay, so we've set the connections for the ripples. Now let's take a look at this pixel processor and let's change it up a little bit more. So we've dealt with this bit already, so that's different on account of having different variables in there. Now, I experimented around with exactly what I did. I mean, water, you need different kinds of waters doing different kinds of things for different kinds of situations. So, obviously this is all very touchy-feely. Uh, but, if you follow the general principles of, I just don't want, I want everything going in a slightly different direction. There's a lot of leeway within that of what you can do because, you just fool around with it, use variables, get it to what you want. So rather than going through like the entire almost day process that I spent just sort of fooling around with it, this is kind of what I came up with. But again, this isn't a hard and fast formula for making water. This is just one water that is getting made. You can just take it and run with it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a couple of things. The pixel processor that the function that we have in the pixel processor for the underlying role is pretty much just sticking to that wave. It's not, I mean, we may change the position of where that wave is generated from, but beyond that, it's the same wave. So I want to do something a little bit different here, and we're going to take this whole thing and we're going to rotate it. I'm actually referring to my notes. Yeah, okay. I'm going to add another, oh, actually, I'm looking in the wrong spot. I go to the library, I type in rotate, get a rotator. So this is going to be our position. Now, the last time we did it, I believe it was in the first sort of demo how to play with a pixel processor video. We just kind of hooked this up. Oh no, actually it was in, I think that was in the underlying way. I've done a bunch of these, so I'm not sure where I said it, but I know I said it. I'm actually going to put a multiply node in here. And I'm going to multiply this. You see, because remember, this wave has that time function in it. So you could put a $ time in here too. I mean, there's no rules. I'm trying to keep it kind of on the same rhythm though. So I find that this is probably a better bet, but what we're going to do, again, we're going to really slow this down. Again, I'm going to use a constant, but I got to this number that I'm using in the constant by actually going and negative 0.05, actually going with a variable and finding what I liked. And sometimes you keep them as variables, sometimes you bring them back to just using them as a constant. So again, we're going to take this wave. I want to do that. Okay, I'm going to take this wave and we're going to multiply by this. And then I'm going to have that as the angle of rotation. So what this is doing is it's taking whatever the wave result of these two variables is then going to get rotated by 0.05 of itself to give us the end result. And that includes the position. So the position is going to get rotated by that amount. What this does, this is like super duper slow, but again, it's kind of the same idea behind what we're doing here with this fluid. This fluid, again, is moving very slowly, and it's almost like a secondary animation, because what it does, we're not so much animating it to have it move visually, but we're animating it just enough so that every time that wave goes through one of its arcs, um, the image isn't the same when it comes back again. So it gives much more of an illusion of not having patterns involved. And then what I did, I was looking at my notes. We probably should have done this first. I just took this position, and again, like I put another rotate position, and I just copied that. I don't know if I saved any time by doing that, but um, I'm just going to offset it a bit by a small number. Oh no, 0.30. Just so it's again not having the same exact spot. And that's pretty much it for now. This becomes then our basic node for the ripples. So for the for the second set of ripples that we're going to make on top, we're going to take this thing and we're going to change this. But this becomes sort of the basis for the ripples animation. Now, one of the things that I find important is that whatever, again, this is an organizational thing, whatever it is you decide is your way of remembering these things the best, because we're copying, these things aren't all running off of the exact same pixel processor. They're running off of iterations of a pixel processor, because we're kind of copying things out, and so we're going to end up with stuff for the color, and we're going to end up with stuff for the opacity that's going to be kind of using some of these guys too. So I'm always very careful about keeping each sort of group of things the same. So making sure that the two formulas on the bottom, the two functions on the bottom, are the same and they correspond to each other. Otherwise, you're in for a world of hurt, because it gets really confusing. So again, this is important when you get into bigger, more complicated materials, to keep things organized, because once you get tangled up in this, it could take a very, very long time to get untangled. So, okay, so let's make, well, first of all, let's take a look at what this looks like, because I don't think we've seen it. So let's publish it out. And let me just make sure I was talking and not really thinking at the same time. This is all good. Okay, yeah. It's going to be more or less what we had before. You're not really going to see a difference. These are all very subtle things. The difference really comes in is once you start having things sort of overlay on each other. That's where the subtleties come in, and that's when that's when I start to tweak them, because these are waves, so sometimes you get like these weird spots where you really don't want that setting, simply because it gives you like a weird little stutter, but you move it 0.01 or 0.1 in the next direction and it's fine. And it's because you're dealing with, it's like series of waves, and sometimes they have like these weird oscillations. So it's best if everything is a little bit different. And and what I also noticed is initially when I did this water, just like I did with the underlying roll, I used the same thing for both of these, and it didn't work nearly as well as if I used a second diff for the ripples. I used a different noise, because when I used the same noise, I would get a lot of, I would almost call it static. But this works great. So that's just from experience. You think you're going to save a step by just doing exactly the same thing, and it actually works out better if you just do the same thing, you just put a different noise in there. All right, so this is going to be our noise on top. And we are essentially going to repeat the same thing. So let's Control C, Control V, make a new pixel processor, and let's take a look at what we're going to do in this one. All right. So let's start at the back and move forward. So we want to change this. Again, we did this before. The easiest way to sort of put a slightly different spin on this is to just multiply it by, make a copy of that, just multiply it by something slightly different. Again, you're not obliged to use the same number for the two of them. You can also have them as variables. And again, this is a number that I came up with. So again, this is a number, it's almost the same thing, but not quite. So you're not going too crazy off of your original, but you are changing it in a way that can be noticed. All right, so that's that. And then why don't we just have this go in the opposite direction? So what am I doing? I'm going for an operator, and I'm just going to go for negation, which is, you could also do a multiply by -1. This saves a step. And so this way, I'm going to have that go like that. Again, these are, it's basically the same thing. So, let's have this one go positive instead. Again, something close, not exactly the same thing. And let's just put the position back to the original position. So, okay, that didn't take any time at all. We just basically messed around with the formula that we had before. And again, we've changed it subtly. Okay, so we can go back to our main graph. And we're going to put a blur in between there. It's basically copying what we did before. You know what? Let's make another variable for it. This way we can kind of fool around with it. Oh, this is so frustrating. I'm going to move this up. I'm used to having a lot more space in here. All right, so we're going to call this, actually, you know what? We're going to rename this guy first. Let's call that 1. And then let's make this other guy, oh, and we should probably change the title. 1. And 2. All right, so what did we have this one set at? Let's just make it the same as whatever this was. So we had 5 and 20. Okay. And we'll just plug it in here. So we're going to expose our intensity. And we're going to call this Rippler 2. Right. So that's all squared away. And let's move these guys down. And let's pull out a normal. And we'll let it automatically put in that gray. And this time we'll put up the intensity the first time round. And since we know that it's working for us, we're just going to go ahead and, oh, that's not what I want. We're just going to go ahead and put this blur in here. I'm just checking, 4.5. Now, we're going to have to add another blend node here because we are going to use this blend node for these two, and then we're going to take this result and we're going to put it in here. So we're going to replace, yeah, that's right. We're gonna this one goes on top. There we go. Oh, wait a minute, what did I do? I did that wrong. Yeah, okay. So let's take a look at that in our 2D view. Yeah, it looks right. And then this is going on top of our slow roll down here. And we put it all over a normal color background before we send it out. And I bet you I forgot to do this again. I always do. This DirectX OpenGL, really, that's a matter of preference. Ooh, yeah, it definitely needs blurring. That's a personal preference, but one of these days I'm going to need to figure out why forcing the alpha makes it not published correctly. Maybe it's a setting. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's just that's how it works out for me. Yeah. So, you know, I think I'm probably going to scooch this up a little bit more just by looking at the map, and I'm probably going to lower the intensity a little bit more on the normal because it looks kind of harsh to me. We can always change it later. Okay. So we seem to be all hooked up. And check my pixel processor. That seems to be in order. All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, you have to be on the file name. Right. Yeah, so we're getting waves in two directions now. So you see those overlying little things on top. And this is where the tweaking comes in, because now you've got to kind of fine tune the interplay. You know, the bottom we got right. We like that roll. That's going to stay. That's not going anywhere. But the sort of secret sauce comes in getting these, you know, playing around with the amplitude and the frequencies of these little guys, and then also, you know, playing with the blurs and getting it to a point where you're happy with the result depending on what you want. I mean, I'm definitely not entirely happy with this. I'm going to kind of leave it alone for now because we're coming up on time, and in order to do this, what I would really want to do is maybe add some temporary variables in here, and you know, maybe play with my this is it's pretty touchy-feely. So we'll leave it here for now. We can, what I think I'm going to do, we'll get touchy-feely with it later, but I think before we do that, I want to see what my opacity is going to look like when I'm done with it, because again, remember, this is a temporary here. And I'd like to hook up my color as well, because we're getting to the point with this thing that I want some more realism in the other. You see, because right now all we've really been looking at is the normals and the height map. We're at a stage now where this opacity is beginning to really distract me, because I want to see it looking at. I want to start now tweaking it with the rest of the substance the way I want it. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to, for the moment at least, leave our height information as is, and we're going to take a look and work a little bit more on our color / opacity information. And we're also going to have the added bonus of, for lack of a better word, foam. I think foam is a pretty strong word for it, but it's almost like a refraction, like a fakey fake refraction, um, which is I consider it more part of the color because it's you can give it a bump, but it's more of a color thing than it's not really a wave. It's more of a color animation. But anyway, we'll address that in the next video.